At the beginning of 2025, things were looking pretty bleak. And in the third quarter of 2025, things are still looking very bleak. I decided I needed to do a low spend for the year, and I also wanted to do a no buy of certain categories. I made a video dedicated to my whys and what I was going to specifically be very conscious about spending my money on and what I wasn't going to be spending my money on, and see if I've stuck to them, if it's been easy, my learning lessons, and we'll talk about some wins and some failures as well. My 3 whys were very specific and very specific to my life as well, and they were all kind of related too. So I really wanted to get a hold on the way that I was spending my money because of the other 2 whys, but the biggest motivator for me was to change my habits. I wanted to make sure that what I was spending my money on were things that actually aligned with my values. My habits were the first one. The second one was that I needed a better financial buffer. I had went through a few really scary health things in 2024. I live in the good old US of A, where that gets so expensive. I spent a lot of money on my health, and my cat, who is 12, almost 13 years old, had also some big health scares, which ended up being really expensive for me. And I didn't want to end up in a situation where I was making decisions on mine or his health based on the money. So I wanted a better financial buffer there. And then both of those things combined were also really related to the political climate. We were seeing a lot of shifts politically and culturally, and the way that companies were coming out and repealing their progressive, as much as they could be, progressive stances. Yeah, just values overall. And I decided that I didn't want to give my money to as much of that as possible. I want to remove myself from supporting the overall economic structure that we live under that was supercharged by the incoming administration that, in my opinion, is unethical, immoral, hurtful to most people if you're not the same type of demographic that our president is. And I didn't want to be contributing to any of that. And in order to not contribute to those things, I needed to make sure that I changed my habits to do that. And then by doing both of those things, I would have a better financial buffer. Those motivations still ring very, very true to me. Those things are still what's driving me, still keeps me going. I think throughout the year, it's been more in the back of my mind than it is to sit down and be like, no, this, on paper or on my little document where I write down things on in black and white, this is why you're doing what you're doing. And it really helps me just realign, be more conscious and intentional about why I'm doing the things I'm doing. And sitting down to write this down to make this video really just reignited how much I felt that at the beginning of the year, how much I felt so motivated to stand by those whys of mine. And it's one thing to have your whys and then your list of do's and don'ts and those sort of things, but you have to also implement rules or strategies to keep you on track, right? If you're shifting from someone who was very anxious to look at my bank account, I had a anxious relationship with my finances. If you're trying to shift from that to someone who's very intentional about where every dollar comes and goes from, then you have to set up habits and rules and kind of structure to the plan, okay? And one of my structures to my plan was to check my ingoings and outgoings, do my budget every single week. My partner and I have Monday meetings, and we have had one every single Monday of 2025, and I'm really proud of that. Because of the way my brain works, I feel I'm often not great with being consistent, but this is something I have been very consistent about, and I'm very, very proud of it. And a tool that could be really, really helpful if you're trying to do the same thing, to build structure for yourself, to align your budget with your whys and your do's and your don'ts, is called Rocket Money, the sponsor of today's video. Rocket Money is the easy to use all-in-one personal finance app that can help you manage subscriptions, lower your bills, track your spending all in one place. One of the things my anxious little brain loves about Rocket Money is that instead of going back through every transaction over the last several months and trying to find all of my subscriptions, especially the ones that I forgot about that maybe only come out once a year, that would take me going through my entire year of finances to learn, is that it just pulls all of my subscriptions up in one place. I was able to cancel them with just a few clicks of a button, which also is a game changer because sometimes you forget your passwords. You don't even know that you had to log into some of these subscriptions. For me personally, because I have editing apps, video apps, some of the cameras I use require a subscription through an app. GoPro, I'm looking at you. And Rocket Money just made all that stress go away. And Rocket Money has helped its customers save up to $740 a year when you use all of the features of the app. And they've helped their customers save over $500 million in canceled subscriptions. And if you use it in your weekly budget meetings, it can help you stay consistent, and it can help you get notifications before your bills are due. So if you are looking to spend more intentionally this year, or just want to know where your money is going, I highly recommend using Rocket Money. And you can get it for free by going to rocketmoney.com/Shelby Orm or the link at the top of my description and get even more when you use premium. Overall, I wanted to spend less money in general, but I had specific categories that I am not buying in for all year. There were specific things that when I look back at my finances over the last year that I was just spending too much on, and not even just looking at my budget, but looking at my home, right? I feel like I could really look around and go, you have enough of this, you have too much of that, and decide where I didn't need to spend. So let's look at each of them and see if I have stuck to them thus far. 8 months into the year. First thing on my list was tops. And I thought this was going to be so hard for me, but I have not bought any tops all year. Now, like I said before, you can look at the ways that you were spending money before and then decide that you don't want to do that anymore and make all these rules for yourself if you want to do a no buy, low spend. But if you don't create some way to make that happen, if you don't figure out what it is that makes you want to spend on that, or find some kind of substitute, or figure out your why, or whatever it is, if you don't come up with a plan of action, essentially, and build yourself a structure to make it happen, then it won't work. I just don't think it will work. And I don't think that I did this super intentionally, but I decided I was going to buy no tops this year, and I also decided at the same time I was going to learn how to sew this year. I was going to sew my own clothes this year. And I think that those two things coupled together made it possible for me thus far. Sewing my own clothes has changed my life. I think I'll talk about that a lot more in this video and probably in other videos, but that has been a big reason why I don't feel the need to shop, because genuinely when I look at something now, I just think to myself, oh, I could make that. And then like I just move on with my life. Just that little shift in my brain from thinking like, oh, I'll buy this, to thinking I could make that, has given me so much more pause. And then I really am examining the things that I actually would want long term, the things that I actually really want, because I know once I decide I really want something, I have to invest hours into making it. And that's really helped my brain understand, like, do you really want that thing if you're not willing to put in the hours to make it? Probably not. All that to say, my no buy for tops for 2025 has been very successful. I would say maybe the most successful thing out of all of my categories. Actually, next up is seeds, and I haven't bought any seeds in 2025 either. I made a garden update video a few months ago. If you want to go watch it, I'll link it up here for you. I talked about in there, I have a lot of seeds for my garden. I'm also struggling a little bit with figuring out what I want to do with the projects in my backyard. I also have utilized my Buy Nothing group a lot for seeds. I also, out at my community stand, I have a seed exchange. So I put seeds I have from mostly from my flowers in my front yard. I'll put those out there. People will put them back. And so it's been a nice way to like get new seeds, exciting plants that I didn't buy without buying them at all. So seeds has also been very successful. Okay, actually we're looking so good so far. Flights is another one that I have not bought any of. I said that if I were going to buy any flights this year, it would be for my credit card points. So I have kept all my credit card points all year. I usually just use it for cash back and I pay off my credit card with it. But I haven't done that this year because my parents have been in talks about wanting to go on a family vacation. And so I am anticipating that I will probably spend that money to get a flight for this family vacation that my parents are talking about. I haven't talked about this a lot, I guess, but my dad is getting old. He is old. My dad had kids when he was like almost 40. So my dad is 74. And there are a few places that he has talked about like my whole life wanting to go. And so I think that I make an exception when I'm not even going to spend money on the flight. I'm going to spend my points on it. And I think that's fine. And I have plenty to do that. But so far, no flights. I put myself on no craft supplies for the first quarter of the year. I made a few exceptions there. Like I remember very specifically a blue sheet, and I felt pretty guilty about that, but it was a situation where it was the perfect blue that I had been wanting for a project that I wanted to make. It was a sheet set at the thrift store that I saw first was $10, and it was the flat sheet, the fitted sheet, and 2 pillowcases. So it was a lot of fabric I was gonna get, and it was only $10. And even then I walked away from it, you guys. Okay, the first time I saw it at the thrift store, I walked away and left it there because I knew I wasn't supposed to do it. Then I went back, I guess a week later, and it was still there, but it was the color of the week, so it was 50% off. I very specifically remember feeling like very guilty about that because I think I did that in January, so it was like definitely Q1. I probably shouldn't have done that. But other than that, I can't remember if I did too much spending on craft supplies in the first quarter. I think not too bad. After the quarter was over and into the rest of the year since then, yeah, I have. I've still stayed within my shopping budget every month. Like It's so funny because the categories we have in our little budget is like, I usually take up all of the shopping budget, and pretty much that entire budget, it should just be called Austin Creative Reuse budget, because that's pretty much the only thing in that category at this point. And it's so funny because every time I go there, I'm like, oh my God, if I was buying this at like a regular craft supply store, it would be so much more. Like, I feel like I'm spending like less than a quarter of what I would spend if I went to the normal craft store when I'm buying something at my secondhand craft store. So then I feel so like I did good, and it's only like $20 to $30 every time I go. But then whenever I look at our budget, I'm like, well, damn, it's like death by a thousand cuts. That's what Madison keeps telling me. Yeah, I definitely think that there's a part of thrifting, especially for craft supplies, that makes me feel like if I see something that I even kind of like and think I could use, I need to buy it, because it won't be there again. Like, it very much won't. But at the same time, I'm not spending a lot of money. It's just like, I am buying things that I don't have plans for yet. And so I feel like I could do better there, but I'm still within my budget, so it's fine. Events was another thing I did not want to spend any money on, and I don't think I have. I definitely didn't around South by. It was like a hard line in the sand. I did not want to spend any money on events. I don't think I have spent any other than that either. I just decided that I really wanted to focus on free community events, and we have plenty of those in Austin, and I've thrown a few myself. I actually just posted about my garden tour I hosted in my neighborhood. We're also hosting an archive day where we go through and digitize all the files we have from the neighborhood association for the last like 15 years, which is just a fun way to participate with your community, to like be a part of community in a real sense, not in a sense of like you paid to go to an event and be around people for a while. That just feels so shallow now, that like I'm trying to build connections, real connections with real people that are actually my community in proximity. That was my goal with that one. I haven't spent any money on events this year. Oh, this one I messed up on. Okay, so gifts. Okay. At the beginning of the year, I didn't anticipate this happening, but my parents have had their property that I grew up on listed for sale for a couple years now. But then within like 2 months, the guy who is behind their house decided to buy their property, and then they were moving. Like, my parents have lived on that property, and then my mom's family lived on that property for generations before that. So that was like a huge emotional transition for everyone involved, and also the first time my parents have ever bought a house. I grew up in a trailer, and my parents have felt very like I don't know what the word is, grateful. There's a lot of gratitude there, but also just like they feel a big, like, this is a big shift for them. Anyway, I said all this to say, when they moved, I did spend a lot of money on gifts for them for their house, mostly just helping them prepare and like what it takes to like adjust to a new house, especially because my dad is disabled. So like I bought like motion sensor lights for the hallway, and I bought like automation stuff for around the house and stuff like that. I ended up spending a lot of money on gifts, but I don't feel bad about that. And honestly, the amount of spending I cut back on in other places makes it so that I can spend money on that. I want to be able to, when I can spend money and not feel bad about it, that's the type of stuff I want to be able to give my money to, because I didn't give my money to the other stuff. Does that make sense? Like, if I have no qualms with spending hundreds of dollars to help my parents move, I want that to be easy because I didn't do these other things. And I think this is a really good category for that. I don't anticipate buying any other gifts this year, but I did do that. Oh, also no new hosting supplies for me. I host a lot at my house. I have a lot of really beautiful secondhand vintage hosting wear that I love so much. And I'm really picky about adding anything to my collection, but I haven't added anything this year. I did stay true to that one. That's good. And plants for my front yard. My sister bought me a couple plants for my front yard because she found a rare plant. It might not be that rare, but in Austin, I've never ever seen it, called pipevine. It's the host plant for the pipevine swallowtail, and I approved her to buy me some of those. I don't think she asked me to pay her back, so technically I didn't buy it. I think I came up with a list of wins and fails, but I honestly think that I want to do like a lot more content around sewing. I would love to hear in the comments if you want to see that, because it's just become so much of a passion for me. But I just wrote down here, like, learning to sew my own clothes has been such a massive win for me, for my no-buy, for my mental health. Like, genuinely, with everything that's going on in the world, I expected my mental health to just be in the trash. And I am so aware of everything that's happening. I'm active in my community fighting against things that are happening in my community on the east side of Austin, Texas, where it's a majority Hispanic population. I expect all of those things to really just get me down, but somehow it hasn't. And the only thing I can look at my life and say like what has changed about it that might be helping my brain is sewing, is like tactile doing. And I can't scroll while I'm doing. That's another really, I think, helpful part of this is like I am literally sewing instead of scrolling. That has transformed my mental health throughout all of this. So I plan on talking a lot more about it, but I wrote that down here as a win. It also has helped curve my spending because instead of, again, scrolling on Pinterest, I am making clothes that I'm inspired by. And instead of feeling like I need to go find the next best thing, I'm making my next best thing. And I feel so empowered by that. So I think just overall, I wrote down sewing as a win for myself. I also wrote down free wood for the front yard stand. When I decided to make this stand in our front yard, I didn't realize how expensive it would be to make it. But after using things from 2 or 3 of my neighbors that were getting rid of wood in my neighborhood, it saved us literally hundreds of dollars to use the wood that they had just lying around that they were getting rid of. That's a huge win for me, for my low spend challenge. And I feel like this is just a small recent one, but I made scrunchies for an event that I hosted here in Austin. It was surrounding like heat protection, UV protection, you know, stuff like that. Instead of giving away freebies that nobody wants, you know, I feel like a lot of times when you go to events like that, it's like just stuff no one wants to use. And instead I sewed a bunch of scrunchies that was stuff I literally already had, especially because I go to my secondhand craft store and buy supplies that I don't know what to do with yet. I literally had bags of like lace that I got for $1, but they're all small bits that really wouldn't work for clothing for the most part, like not a whole border of the bottom of a top or the sleeve or anything like that. So I was able to use those for scrunchies, and I think that's a big win. I didn't spend any money on that, and also I didn't create trash. I kept them in a bin, and every time someone would come over, I would ask them if they wanted one, and they could pick which one they wanted so that they weren't just getting like, you know, random freebies that I feel like no one really wants that are going to end up as trash. Okay, in my fails, I have things that I've already talked about, which like spending money on gifts for my parents, technically against my rules. I don't regret it. But the only other one in my fails list that I did want to talk about is the inventorying my pantry app. I'll link that video up here where I did like a big thing where I thought it was going to change my life, because inventorying my wardrobe earlier, or I guess late last year, really changed my relationship with my clothes. Really helped me shift out of this mentality of like, I see an outfit I like, let me buy the thing, into let me figure out how to make an outfit similar enough to like scratch that itch without spending any money with my own closet. I kind of thought that I would get the same thing out of inventorying my pantry, but it just turned out to be too hard for us. I love that I was able to import my receipts from my grocery store, which made it a lot easier. Like, I think the app is set up in a way that really should work really well. Importing your receipts from your grocery store, it's just the part where every time something is gone, you have to remember to remove it. I thought it was gonna work, and it just didn't for us. I don't really know how to describe it. It just didn't change my life in the way that I hoped it would, the same way that inventorying my closet did. I definitely do feel we've wasted a lot less food this year. We've spent a lot less money on groceries this year, on eating out this year. Food delivery apps, the budget for that has gone way, way down, which I'm really grateful for. But I think long term, actually deleting and updating what you have in your fridge, things that are going bad, things that you're using up, it's too much for us. So that's a fail that we had. So my goal with this video was to say, I set out to do a no buy, here's how it went, here's how I was successful, and here's some ways that maybe I wasn't so successful, so that you can get a realistic idea of what a no buy low spend challenge is. Because I think no buy sounds terrifying, and like the first couple times I heard it, I was like, that's impossible. We live on this planet under this economic system, we have to buy things. But I hope this gives you a more realistic picture of what no buy means. For me, it means spending less money on things that don't really matter to me, so that I have money for the things that do really matter to me, and especially fighting against the awful things happening in the United States specifically, and all around the world. There are things that we are involved in all around the world that are awful. And I think it's very unfortunate that as citizens, we almost feel more like consumers than we do citizens. It feels like oftentimes the way we vote with our dollar is more important than anything else we can do. And while at the same time I do other things in my city specifically, like it feels like where I spend my money is the most impactful thing that I can do. So I really love that I am aligning my spending a lot more with my values, and I hope that you are too. If you are, probably hit the subscribe button, because you're gonna like it here. That's mainly what I talk about, being more conscious of the way we spend our money and the impacts of how we spend our money, those impacts on our mental health, our culture, and most importantly to me, the environment. So remember, until next time, you cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good that you can do.